Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I'll Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
Let's put a date on this. It is November 8th, 2024. So we are in the fresh hell that was election week. Also, content warning, we are talking about the election, about what's happening, and about our own thoughts. And I'm suspecting, Anney, that this is going to be very pessimistic in view. That's not the way we'd love to do our episodes. I mean, I know I'm in general a pessimistic individual, the negative Nancy, as we like to say, but I don't think there's any other way around this one but to lean through being a little bit disheartened. So for those of y'all who needs to take a breather from this, understandable. This is all our own opinions and thoughts. This is in no way in reflection of the entirety of Sminty. So I'm not speaking for Joey, Maya, Christina, or Anney. I'm speaking for myself when I'm talking about what's going on through my head. Also that I know we're going to come back and revisit a lot. I know I said in the middle of, maybe in the end of, or the middle of our conversation about voting, as well as my fears and my family issues when it comes to politics, that the one thing I do know for certain is that we do rally. We as a people in a community, we in the intersectional feminist community do come through in rallying together, and we are fighters. So I do understand that. But right now, we are in the state of mourning. Man, I keep thinking a little bit about Kristen and Caroline's episode. And I know, Anney, that's really fresh for you because you were the producer at the time. Am I correct? And people truly realized that Kristen and Caroline were intersectional feminists and what that meant. Because for a while, when the world didn't seem so bleak, we could talk about women's issues without being divisive. And I say that loosely because it's always been divisive. But on the whole, white women were very accepting on conversations in pockets and not having enough pockets. So we know that. And I'm not saying white feminists right now. I'm talking about in general and what we see and what is accepted in the women versus men conversation that often happens, not necessarily intersectional. Not, in fact, absolutely not intersectional, just women versus men. And that's an old adage, like a housewife joke that was accepted. And then when it got to be like a stickier issue of like, oh, so we were talking about everybody having rights? No. I just want to be able to say that to my husband, he needs to clean every now and again. And again, this is very heteronormative speculation. So I know a long time ago when Kristen started the show, it was a niche show. It was niche podcasting in general was niche. And so having easy conversations about women wanting more pockets was acceptable. But the minute they came out and talking about their fear of Trump, a big chunk of people left the show disappointed that Kristen and Caroline cared. So I know we are far away from that. Like we've pretty much established since then. Caroline and Kristen established that since then, this is that show, that we are an intersectional feminist show. And when we say freedom, when we say equal rights, we're talking about equity for everyone. But it's still amazing that we're having a similar episode today. So a lot of emotions are here. And we want to take a time to be very transparent with you as listeners about where we are and about the state we are in. We kind of prepped in advance, as you know. If you listen to the episode chronologically and you are up to date, which kudos if you are. Wow. If you are, because we have so many episodes and we understand. You know, we didn't know. Yesterday, the episode, again, if you're following along the timeline chronologically and actually up to date with everything or close to it, I was concerned with what was happening with my family and knowing that this is going to be another huge bump in the road for my relationship with my family. But I don't think it had hit. I don't know if it has it in general, the actual results of it all. And again, I don't think it comes as a surprise that for me personally, my pessimistic self is having a hard time finding the silver lining in this moment. I woke up at 5:30 a.m., looked at my phone on Wednesday morning, and immediately whispered, because my partner was asleep in bed. And I could not stop saying that. Oh my God, what the Even though it wasn't surprising, it still was. Real talk, everything seemed so dark. It was dark, literally. Realizing not only did he win the electoral votes, but he won the popular vote in a landslide. And I watched as Congress also fell under the Republican control. And this is new. This did not happen last time around. So the fact that this is happening makes me nauseous. Of course, this will be a huge difference. This will be a huge difference. The amount of damage that can be done in the next 4 years feels massive and feels very like apocalyptic to me. And ironically, again, the happy hour I just released seems almost too optimistic, I think, in comparison to where we're at. I will say that there has been and is this dread that's in the pit of my stomach, that's in my heart, that's in my throat. It is all but paralyzing. It feels bleak. Trying to record this episode is a chore. Let's be very honest. I keep asking myself, why do people hate themselves so much that they would vote against their own interest? And of course, our interest, like everybody's interest. And honestly, this is specifically to my Asian community. It's only 54% voted Democrat, while 39% voted Republican. Apparently, there is another stat, and I cannot find it, but people are saying that 72% of the Asian women voted for Democrat. So that does make me feel a little more hopeful. Like, at least it's higher. But the fact that they're still the marginalized, especially when it comes to the fact that she is an Asian woman. Like, we can't even vote for, okay. And I will say, maybe me having my own experience growing up in a very white family and community, and not only white, but very conservative. If you know anything about North Georgia, if you know anything about going outside of the metro area of Atlanta, very conservative. The amount of Trump stuff everywhere was incredible and scary for me. Growing up, I felt like, I did. I absolutely felt the need to acclimate with my then community, and the overall dislike of my Asian heritage. And again, wishing to be white was really overwhelming growing up. Like, I would stare at myself in the mirror, begging myself to be whiter. Like, I would think about the fantasies, and I loved books growing up, and I love fantasy stuff, about having a wish that I could be white. Like, I can't explain the amount of self-loathing I had as an Asian person growing up, because I felt so out of place and so ostracized that my solution was to hate myself and blame my heritage instead of seeing the opposite, like that the world around me is f***ed up and hateful. And I say that this type of self-hatred and anti-Asian ideas, and to my adolescent angst, adding to my adolescent angst, was not a great mixture. And being taught also that I must be grateful to those who saved me, and I'm putting that in quotes, from an assumed bad situation, again, we don't know, really had a chokehold on me. And so, I made a joke about the fact that I had voted for Bush when I first turned voting age in college, because I was that self-hating, not understanding what this meant to me. And it still doesn't feel as bleak doing that. Don't get me wrong, it was bad, because what he did was bad. but still doesn't seem as bleak as what's happening today. I will say that. And when it comes to, and again, this is going back to the Asian people, immigrants in general, like the high rates of Latino voters who went for Trump, who a lot of them, or some of them are seeing some repercussions of that already. But when it comes to like the American dream and then the idea that a person could obtain it is often only if they adhere to the ideas and structures that the white, rich men put into place. And that means to idolize and wish to become like them. Like that's the American dream that's being sold. So many people in my similar circumstances, immigrating with the hopes of a, quote, better life, get sucked into this narrative that all the problems of the world are because of other foreigners. And again, I'm putting that in quotes, who don't play by the rules. They literally create a scenario that pits themselves against each other. Again, instead of seeing the whole picture that oppression is created in order for the powerful to remain powerful, they buy into the idea of the Squid Games. And I'm talking about the K-drama. Yes, I'm making a reference here to K-drama. There is a prize, but only a few, if not only one, of the lowly people can get that prize. So you must fight amongst yourself against your own selves. Like that's what is being played out in politics, and no one wants to talk about it. And yes, that was the point of the Squid Games. If people are like, "Oh, what? I thought it was just a fun K-drama." No, and just to also put in that the South Koreans are struggling here. The divide between upper middle class versus lower socioeconomics is so huge. There is hardly no middle class. And that's the point. I'm struggling to see those numbers, especially how vastly they differentiated from Biden. And of course, this is that conversation about misogynoir that we knew would always be a point in this conversation, and a big stickler to how they would defeat Harris. We know this. It didn't even matter what her policies were. It was just misogynoir was going to win out. The only people, speaking of which, who seem to best understand this and has always understood this from the beginning have been Black women. Black women have known from the beginning, and I'm saying this from the beginning as in like trying to fight for rights when they were able to speak their truth / the truth, that the breaking down of a system must mean to break it down completely. Not just from one issue. It's not just about voting rights, as they wanted to talk about in, the beginning of the 19th Amendment, but has to include anti-lynching laws, equal rights for all, rights to not only be able to work in the workforce, but being able to protect those in the workforce, which has often endangered and forced women of color into these workplaces or limited their work options, or even being able to remain at home if possible, and also being told they should be at home, but also serving others and for minimal pay. Still, they knew that oppression for one group or any group meant oppression for everyone. They knew that. They know that. No one is free unless everyone is free. That's the phrase. And it's simple, but giant. They have been that force. They have done that work. And they have shown again and again they are willing to do it, even when they're most likely to be the most unappreciated and absolutely not given any credit. I think in Georgia alone, you can see this. You can see the wavering here, how when things have gone right, I guess, in that viewpoint of liberals in general, they're willing to clap their hands and, yay, way to go. But when things go wrong, they just get lumped into Georgia sucks type of conversation. And we'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. But the percentage was 50.7% vote for Trump. With the mind that not only was there a surge of purging of the voter registration, bomb threats, absentee ballots not being sent out correctly, which, by the way, Cobb County, which was the biggest issue, still was blue. Not as blue as they could be, but still flipped blue. because it's a swing county for us, by the way, y'all. And so many other things. The gerrymandering alone, so many other issues at hand that they barely won. And it isn't because the Black women stopped working, because they never stopped. I hate that fact that we were red, like, so badly. Like, the one small thread of hope is, even if she lost, please let us be blue. Please let us remain blue. I honestly am struggling with understanding any of this. I do feel like my family voted against me as a person, as a human. And I know they have not tried to reach out to me, by the way. We have not talked. But knowing that they care so much more about these quote unquote bad guys, immigration, which I have yet to see them affected by immigrants, as in fact, my brother has been taken advantage of by 3 white women, including embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars from him to going bankrupt. I don't understand how he sees immigration as being the issue. Let's be very honest. I knew it. I knew that this could happen. We knew that things were falling this way, unfortunately. I still had hope. I still hoped. But I didn't want to see it in 4K. This is not something we wanted to see. But here we are. There's so much more to do. We know this. I'm a little more scared than before because people are dying. We also know that. People continue to die. People are being deported. People are being put in bad situations. Extremists have come out in victory saying the most awful stuff that they've been able to hide, or at least they thought they would be ridiculed for, but they no longer feel that, which is a concern. I know there's still investigations, and I haven't even talked about the failing of this system in general, because it is a failing. I haven't talked about I don't want to talk about whose fault is this, who did this, who were wrong. People who are angry should be angry. People who have fought should be tired and feel disappointed. And that's completely reasonable. There's a lot of things happening right now. But I think we have to remember we have more to do. And I'm saying this, we as a collective Asian person in my community. I can only speak to that. I am disappointed. Like I said, I'm very scared. But that doesn't mean we're going to give up. I'm not going to give up. Although I really want to, because I like to sleep. These stressful times I sleep. I will say for ourselves, and for a lot of our people, I think we have to give ourselves room to rest and mourn, but also to remember that we still have to rally.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to everyone out there, I know it's been so hard. And it feels very like when I did my election anxiety episode, I was saying like my calendar ends on this day. And so now it's just like we fight for the next day. The next day. But you're not alone, because so many of you were so kind and you reached out. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. And I feel it's so frustrating because I wanted to spend the next 4 years fighting for more progress instead of fighting going backwards. And it's frustrating too, because I've had so many friends reach out to me who are scared. I'm scared too, but whose jobs are going to be impacted by this. Because I have a friend who works for the CDC, RFK Jr. is going to be in charge of that. So who knows what's going to happen there. And then I have a friend who's a nurse, been on the show. And I don't know if this was just poor timing or what, but they had to go through a training on how to tell people are pregnant that their babies are dying. yeah, it's just, it's a lot. It takes a physical toll. Like, I've been very sick. I've been physically sick. And that makes it harder to fight. But yeah, we can't. I don't want to give up. I don't want to let them win. Makes me mad just thinking about it. But it does hurt. And I kind of am tired of people being like, oh, you're being so dramatic. Like, well, good for you. You're probably better off than me. So if you feel it, if you're hurting too, because I had so many people text me too, and they're like, is this too much of a reaction? Why do I feel this way? And I was like, no, it hurts. It hurts. And it does hurt because a lot of us do have the conservative family members. And this is a time where the holidays are bearing down upon you. And, well, what do I do about this? I'm already like having imaginary fights with people because I have a lot of like men in my life who are liberal, but then they always dismiss me when I'm like, don't you think sexism had a role here? And they're like, no. Okay, cool. It's not like it's my job or anything. Great. But it does, I mean, right before this, I was reading an article and I briefly mentioned it in the election anxiety episode. But it was about like the trauma of the 2016 election and like how so many people are still dealing with that and how this was compounding upon that. But it is worse because the damage he can do in this second term is worse. But it was also, and we're gonna have to come back and talk about this maybe when we're both in a better place, but it was also saying like one of the reasons for better or worse that Kamala Harris really didn't make a big deal about like being perhaps the first woman candidate or perhaps the first Asian Black candidate is because there was such a backlash in 2016 to when Hillary Clinton did that, to the point there were articles written about like feminists elected Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And if that is true, if just like the idea of having out of 47 presidents a woman, of just like having equal rights and equity and safety, like people just want to exist. If that is still enough to cause such a backlash, then yeah, we have a lot of work to do.
Right. It's not surprising to see that a lot of the reactions for Trump's win are conservatives sending messages to Black people, to women, to queer people. Ha ha, you'll never be free. I own you. Essentially is what the message has been, to the point that people are like been reporting it to the FBI. But if the Project 2025, which we haven't talked much about, but a part of that Project 2025 is literally reversing any of those equities or equal rights conversations. Oddly, and I've noticed people saying this recently, that Trump specifically has been very quiet since his victory, which is not like him. So that scares me more. But the first thing he said that he's going to do is immediately undo any trans rights day one, which is horrifying and scary. And then immediately go into, obviously, abortion stuff. And now that the Republican Party has taken control with a big chunk of very conservative, right-winged people at his, I guess, at his side as his accomplices. There's a lot we're going to have to look at. There's a lot we're going to have to talk about. I feel like the tone of Sminty might change a little bit. Not that it hasn't already. after 2016, we as a show, not necessarily me, but the show in general went through massive changes in hosts, like back to back to back, like within that same administration, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that I think about
It
it,
was
that's
a
not
very
funny,
stressful time.
I cannot believe all of that happened within one administration. That there was like
Yeah.
4 host change.
It was, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, sorry y'all, because I came in 2019. That was still under his administration.
Yep. It feels like forever.
Oh my goodness, well, me, yes. On top of the fact COVID happened. So a lot of things were different, obviously. And everybody, the show was changing in direction. But 2020 happened, and we established a good tone for us, I think, in what we were able to create and how we were able to create and how much was demanded of us or expected of us when it came to going from 2 to 3 days a week to 5 to 6 days a week. And we're still going to try our best to give lighthearted, inspirational stuff. Obviously, that's the one thing I know for sure is that we're going to get a lot of inspirational names and a lot of people who are doing some amazing things that we can support and watch. And I'm sure all you listeners will be some of those people. And I'm excited to find that out. But we will also make sure that we are fighting to get truth out, which sounds so gross because the way that is phrased seems like a right-winged mantra.
Yeah.
And I hate that that's what we're doing. But honestly, like we've talked about the importance of like unraveling disinformation and misinformation. And that is something that I think is something that will be heavily on us as podcasters. That is continuing on. We want to make sure that we are voicing that and we are working for that because that is our job and that is our privilege. So I'm bear with us as we change with the environment, I guess, and the and social status of everything, and hopefully we can remain. I mean, I don't know.
I do want to say this is like a random thought that I had. And I'm not angry at the person who said it to me. But this was in 2016. A friend of mine said to me after Trump was elected, and he was like, well, you'll never run out of topics to talk about now. Like, no. I wouldn't have run out of topics to talk about without this.
We were never without. Like, people ask us constantly, how do you think of so many things? Because we have to publish so many episodes. And it literally, sometimes we do have moments, but then there's not at any point have we actually run out of an idea.
No, and it's not. But the thing is, like, there's always going to be intersectional feminist things to talk about.
Right.
Now it's just, I was hoping I'd never have to think about this guy again.
Right.
Other than like the legacy and what gave him power in the first place.
Right.
But now here we are. And yeah, it's because I know he's also trying to get rid of the, so when you're elected, you replace the cabinet.
Yeah.
But there's like 35,000 other jobs that you don't replace. And that's for stability. But he wants to get rid of that and replace them with people he likes, which means like potentially you couldn't even trust the weather. Like,
right.
So
which he's tried to do before.
He's definitely tried that. I think, honestly.
The windmill thing. Because like he wants to change the climate change.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't want to talk about it. He wants to say, nah, y'all keep getting all the coal. We're good.
Mm-hmm.
He's also part of the reason why a lot of our standards have changed in like FDA and all of that. Anyway.
Yeah.
But it's okay. We will talk about also how economically we are effects of a rumor of tariffs have already made impact in a lot of companies, which we'll have to come back to because, again, as we've told before, women hold the buying power in the household. Yeah. So we have to have that conversation of what that looks like. I will say we're going to try to end with some positives. Only have 4 things, Anney. I know there's more, y'all. So you can help
Please
us
let
out.
us know.
Send it out to us. But here's a few. Maryland elected their first Black woman as U.S. Senator. Her name is U.S. Senator Angela Also Brooks. She is an attorney. She has done some amazing things in Maryland already. So I'm excited to see her. I think she's the 4th Black woman to be elected into the U.S. Senate. And I'm really sad, but glad she's there.
Yeah.
I'm sad that that's the number, and I'm glad she is there, though.
Right.
New Jersey elected the first Asian American U.S. Senator, Andy Kim. Really excited to see what he can do and hope he does us proud. Do be proud, man. Don't make me sit here crying in this corner, okay? And Sarah McBride, who has already made history, has also made history as the first openly transgender U.S. House of Representatives. She, again, made history as a state senator in Delaware, but now is a part of the U.S. House of Representatives. We're so glad you're there, Sarah. We are rallying behind you and excited about the work. And I'm sorry about the work you're about to have to go through. And out of other good news, 7 out of 10 states who had reproductive rights on their ballots won protection for those rights. I love that. I love that the people were able to speak out. Of course, 3 other states did not, including Florida, but we also know the misinformation in the campaign that DeSantis did in order to make sure to sabotage that. So that's a whole different conversation. But to the other 7 states, excited. Unfortunately, we will see what... Okay, no. I'm going to backtrack. I'm not saying going... No. We're celebrating that and ending it there. We're celebrating that. Yes, we're celebrating this. But we will keep an eye on what's going on and have conversations and come and have a bigger conversation about it. We love you, listeners. To those who have stuck with us through all the changes, thank you. To all those who support us, to those who have the privilege to support those marginalized and do so, thank you. We would love to hear from you. We will mourn together. So just, reach out and know that we're here.
Yeah, we are here. And thanks also to all of the listeners who have worked, volunteered, run for office, all of those things. Because that's going to be important in the coming days. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at stephanieandmomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff I Never Told You. Also on YouTube, we have a TeePublic store and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer, Christina, our executive producer, Maya, and our contributor, Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite shows.